Hey folks, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast with your host Tracy Hayes. Today's guest comes highly recommended by a previous guest we had on the show, Ella Woods. Ella believed her amazing first year of success has much to do with the mentorship she received by this outstanding agent, who herself not been in the business very long, but caught the express train to real estate success. Recently crowned a Momentum champion. For her production numbers, however, she does more than just numbers. She must believe in a rising tide raises all boats, as she is committed to assist, coach, and mentor her fellow agents. She is the momentum in Momentum Realty. Let's welcome Michele Weaver to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I'm glad you made it today.
Yes.
I think you had. Was it a listing appointment that you had this morning? Was that a success?
Yes.
Okay.
Some really good listings coming up here. I know we need them. So.
Well, there's no doubt inventory. I spent the morning talking to agents. Inventory definitely is a challenge here in the area, and hiring or being matched up as a buyer or seller with a top-notch agent is so important. Because I'm telling you, whether it's multiple listings coming in, or not multiple offers coming in on a listing, I should say, or making sure your offer is the best presented, that hopefully it makes the final 2 or 3 and hopefully wins the offer for you, is so important. That's why it's important to search out top agents like Michele. So Michele, as I start off every show, tell us a little about you. Where'd you grow up?
So originally I'm from New Jersey, but I've been in Florida majority of my life. Moved down to the Clearwater area when I was 10 years old.
All right, I have one question. I have to stop you there. Are you a Giants fan or an Eagles fan?
Oh, Giants.
Okay, there we go. We're on this now. Now we know we have a top agent in the room.
Yeah, definitely Giants. So my family moved down to the Clearwater area when I was 10 years old, and then in 2003 I moved up to Jacksonville to go to UNF.
Oh, okay.
Although I never thought I would stay in Jacksonville long term, when in 2003 UNF was this tiny little school, there was no St. John's Town Center, but I liked that I was still going to be close to the beach.
Right.
So came here and it captured me, and I fell in love with the city, and I've loved getting to watch it grow and evolve.
Well, pulling you away from Clearwater it had to be tough. Clearwater's a nice area too. My brother lives over in that area and has for almost 30 years now.
People are always shocked. They're like, you left the Clearwater Tampa area to go to Jacksonville. So they're always surprised. And my husband is from here, and we actually did move back to Clearwater for just around 2 years. We bought our first house in Clearwater.
Right.
And after a while, I looked at him one day and I was like, I want to list this house. Like, I want to go back to Jacksonville. And he was ready to go. I think his bags were like halfway packed to already move. He was already waiting for that to come.
Don't tell me he wanted to move back closer to mom.
Me. No, it wasn't my mom.
No, his mom. His mom.
No.
Okay.
So, I just realized that I kind of had grown up here in Jacksonville, and the friends that were lifelong friends were here. And everyone that was really close to me back in Clearwater wasn't, aside from my parents and my sister. And, so we're really happy we made the move back.
Yeah. Jacksonville, well, obviously I live in St. Johns County, which is considered St. Augustine. And, I think every day, every year that goes by here, and, I've been here since 2009, and it's getting, the community's getting smaller and smaller. The more people so-and-so knows so-and-so. Obviously, social media helps make some of those connections, because you realize, oh, so-and-so is also friends with this person. And, then you start talking, you realize a lot of people know a lot of other people that and may not interact on a daily basis. So you went to UNF.
Yes.
Okay. Degree in?
I was a communications major. It wasn't something that I had no plan when I went to school. There was not any one thing that I was like, I want to do this.
Just went down the majors and said,
I wanted to start in psychology, but I realized that was going to mean more school to actually make money in that degree. And I definitely knew I didn't want to do that. Right. Real estate's actually always been something that I've been very interested in from an extremely young age. When my family was making the move to Florida when I was like 9-10 years old, my mom has a friend who's an architect. We were supposed to move to North Carolina and build a home there. And I remember watching that whole process and being just completely captivated. So real estate had always been on my mind, although it wasn't something my dad wanted to see me do straight out of college. So
interesting.
Understandable.
Now, well, with that, anyone else in your family, just other than your interest in watching that transaction, is anybody else in the business whatsoever in your close immediate family? So that kind of puts it out. I think a lot of people, that initial kind of career thing is because they're seeing the parents or uncle or whatever in that career, and they're like, oh, I might want to do that because they don't really know the other careers, but it was kind of there, which kind of leads up to a question is what introduced you to real estate? Who was that first? Did someone come and talk to you about it, or you just say, you know what, I think I just want to do it and want to take the license? How'd you?
Yeah, so my first real job was actually a job that I took at Victoria's Secret as a seasonal associate. I became a store manager within like under a year for them. And so I got a lot of leadership experience working for limited brands. Their leadership training is next to none. It was unbelievable. And so I did that for like 6-7 years. And I realized I had to get out of retail. Wanted to go into real estate, but was used to a salary, and at that point kind of needed a salary. I didn't feel confident in the fact that I could just jump into real estate, and it was the timing was right. And so I actually made the transition to working in title. And so I was able to put my management skills to use there. I started out working in title, learned everything there was to learn about it, and ended up managing the offices. There was 9 offices throughout the state, majority of them actually being back in Clearwater, and only one little solo office here in Jacksonville. So I kind of ran this market, but went back and forth. Did a lot of trainings. I love training people. I just I get so much energy from it. And so did the title thing for a long time, and that really solidified it for me that like my next move is going to be real estate, because now I'm interacting with all these realtors, I'm seeing their role, and every closing I sat at, as much as I loved sitting there and doing the paperwork, I was looking at that agent with like a little bit of jealousy, like I could do that.
Because we talked about your LinkedIn's a little thin, but you had a lot of accolades from people that worked for Victoria's Secrets, and I guess Limited Brands owns them. Let's just start. Let's focus on the retail.
Yeah.
You said 7 or 8 years that you did that. What have you taken from that experience to what you've been doing here the last couple of years as a real estate agent?
Yeah. So first thing is communication, and working in retail and working in that mall setting, you go into work with the same objectives every day, but you never know how you're going to get there. You never know what customer's going to walk through your door and what kind of a day that they've been having. So you work in retail and you learn how to communicate with people and read people and understand what they need. I would get to see people who were having the time of their lives. They were there because they were getting ready for a bachelorette party and a wedding, and they're so excited. And then you would see people who have had like a massive weight gain and were feeling really down on themselves, and they just,
whatever life happens,
whatever is happening. And so it was really interesting, those connections that I was able to make with the employees that I worked with, and then also the customers that would come through the doors. That's
so interesting. I think, when you take that away, and I think back, at a point because I've worked retail as well, at one point selling mattresses. And then my last retail experience was in telecommunications, and cell phones. Alltel used to be in the area. Yeah. Obviously, used to be Alltel Stadium until Verizon bought them out. But one of the things I learned in the mattress store situation, obviously the flyer goes out, people see it. Saturday morning they're coming in, and how you greet them could make or break. Now, I'm not saying you can't save it if you had a bad greeting, but let me tell you, if you have that right initial 30 seconds, how you interact with them could really mean the difference of you ending that situation with a closing, or obviously buying the mattress, or in a sense buying in Victoria's Secret. It's really important.
Yeah. And
like I said, reading people coming in the door, and reading people that everyone, I'm going to tell you, walks into a store is uncomfortable. And what do all the sales associates say? Can I help you? And I'll tell you what I've learned as I hate going to clothing store. I hate buying clothing. I just, like whatever. My wife, if you think it looks good on me, go ahead and buy it, right? But if I'm going in there for as a male, specifically for one thing. Right. That's typically one thing, versus women may shop a little bit more. And I learned quickly just to turn and tell them what I want. As a buyer, but not everyone's like me. You have to learn to get that out of them without saying, "Hey, what do you want?"
Well, not only do you have to learn to get that out of them, but you also have to know how to work with somebody who has your personality style of being very direct. And so saying, okay, if you come in and tell me exactly what you want, I better not start telling you about the promos that my upper management is telling me I have to talk about.
Right.
I can work that into the conversation later, but I'm going to give you what you want first. It's what you asked for.
You don't want to build that trust.
Yeah.
That you're actually looking out for them.
Yeah. And that was actually one of our trainings there is we did similar to a DISC assessment where we would learn our personality style and then how that in turn meant how we were going to interact with our employees, how we were going to interact with customers, because you better read that right and really quickly or they're not going to want to hear anything else from you.
I'm going to tell everyone listening right now, when I heard about the DISC assessment, I don't know how many years ago, and until really recently, I was able to actually place it and how important, and I'm not saying that DISC is the only one, but that's the one a lot of people, especially in real estate, use. It's so important, whether it's your assistants on your team, your other agents, I'm the high D, my assistant's the high C. She's detail oriented. I'm the go-getter. I'm out there fighting the battles. That's what drives me. And you got to understand it when you're hiring, and in this case, meeting a seller or buyer, you have to read them without them actually taking the actual assessment, but you pick up on some of these things.
Pick up on those cues really quickly. Yeah. Absolutely.
And really just, it makes one you can say is it builds a trust quicker. Yeah. And therefore you can get to where you want to be by just taking the right path and asking the DISC assessment questions. So, all right, so you go into the title. Now you're actually working in the real estate industry. Yep. So we understood what you took from the retail world. What are you taking from your title experience now and putting into your business today?
Well, I have to just say, I feel like I went into the real estate exam with a cheat sheet, right? So I end up getting a lot of questions, like the maximum number of questions you could have had that were title related about deeds and things like that. I'm like, oh, this is great. I know I've been doing this now for the last few years. I know this stuff. Yeah. So I had the customer service side of things, from Victoria's Secret. And then from the title side, I got to learn about real estate, right? There's so much more to a real estate transaction than just what you think about when you watch HGTV, or even I had personally bought and sold 2 properties at this point, getting into real estate, and I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about the contracts I was signing until I got into title. And so I got to learn the ins and outs of that. I was also really well aware of these things that could potentially be a hiccup in a real estate transaction. And I got to hear the reactions of the agents on the other end when these things would come up. Like, wait, what do you mean there's a title issue? Because you normally don't hear about it. We take care of it. We try not to involve you. Right. And so I kind of had that insider knowledge going into it. And it allowed me to come from a very educated perspective from day one. And I don't feel like the first buyer that I worked with felt like the first buyer because I had actually worked with hundreds before them.
One of the things that I've picked up on, this is my 54th episode, probably high 40s were agents. Every one of them is a producer, is active out there, putting numbers up. But one of the cores, Ella mentioned it, but not almost. I don't know if anyone didn't mention it unless we just didn't bring it up during the conversation. But you've mentioned something important. Your path took you through title, and you educated yourself because you had some sort of vision that being a realtor somewhere, like you said, those real estate agents were coming in on a regular basis, and more you were building up your momentum to get into real estate, right? So the education part, and obviously now you title, pretty much like the back of your hand because you were actually doing it. Where a typical agent's trying to learn it, and they're learning it from one side, where you learned it from inside. Yes. How important, and then how important is it today as you're seeing, and we'll refer back to Ella again because she said exactly this. How important is to constantly be educating yourself about the business, because really you'll never know everything.
It's everything. Our market is changing so quickly, especially right now, that if you're not constantly educating yourself and talking to other agents and finding out what's going on in this market, what's going on in other markets that are a little bit ahead of ours, because we're in Florida, and so things kind of take a little longer to get to us. So just constantly educating yourself so you can be one step ahead. I love to be able to be really creative. Nothing makes me more excited than when I submit an offer and I'm talking to the listing agent about it, and they're like, oh, that's a really interesting term. And I'm like, yes, okay, cool. Like, that's exciting. That's the goal here. Let's get creative. Let's make it a win for everybody.
The education for any, new agents out there, and you're probably mentoring some agents right now at Momentum, and hopefully will listen to this show. But how important is education in the terms of confidence?
Oh, I mean, you have to be able to feel like you know what you're talking about, right? So just having those real estate conversations, listening to people who communicate in a similar style to you, because then it's really easy to adapt and take what they're talking about and portray that to your customer. But, not only the education, I am a big believer in you just have to start doing it. You can't expect in real estate to know everything until you get involved. And that's where having a really strong mentor that's not going to let you sink, because you're going to have to swim. And so going back to the personality styles, I realized that when I directly mentor an agent, it is important that they have a certain personality style that's going to be okay with being pushed in a little bit, but knowing that like, hey, I've got that cord there. I'm not going to let you fall. I promise we're bungee jumping here and you're secure, but you just got to go out and start doing it. And I'm going to take you through the rest.
It brings up a question here, again, not on my sheet, as I tell you, most of the time we never go there. But are you, because this was brought up in an episode I had last week, which is by a very successful team here in Northeast Florida that everyone knows. When Momentum isn't, from what I understood, you guys like to bring in a more experienced agent. You're not necessarily that you're not really looking for that person's fresh out of the class, just took their test.
Correct.
But yet you must be going through some sort of screening process with them that makes sure that when you have, I assume you guys have some sort of training program, the Momentum way.
Yeah.
What are you doing at the front end to make sure this candidate is a high likely candidate that they're going to stick through that?
Yeah. So, with Momentum, you brought it up. Like when we started Momentum, we have a production standard. And so we don't take on brand new agents unless they're coming in through our mentorship program. And I won't talk too much about this, but we've got some exciting things in the works right now.
Well, you got to talk about it now. It's got to come out on the show.
I'm not going to give out too much information because it's not official yet. But so we've got some things in the works for any new agents that we're really going to like ramp that up. But so
all right, so hold on a second. So when this comes out, you and Ella come on and you guys can talk about this.
We'll give a follow-up, yes. I was actually hoping everything would be lined up before our date, and we pushed it a week sooner, and it just, it's all good though. So, to come on in as a new agent though, you do have to be a part of our mentorship program right now. And so with that, I'm actually the first person that screens anyone who is interested in joining Momentum. I'm the first person you talk to 99% of the time. And so the first conversation is just me getting to know you, seeing are we a cultural fit. One of the big things at Momentum is we want people who are goal-oriented, that are really looking for growth, have an open mindset, are going to be collaborative. One of the things that's made Momentum so successful is that our agents share with each other, and we're excited to share our wins and kind of figure out how can we replicate that throughout the market. Once, we go through that first process, then I do have people do a DISC assessment. We also use a program called Strength Finders, which I absolutely love because our training is really focused around let's not focus on the things that are opportunities. Let's focus on the things that are in your strength zone naturally. Make those even better. Build a business plan around the things that you're already good at. Exactly. Because that's going to lead you to having ease, excellence, and enjoyment. And most importantly, it's going to lead you to being consistent. You might be able to sell a ton of houses by doing something that you hate because it works, but you're not going to keep doing it. So let's build your business the right way. So the DISC assessment, Strength Finders, and then I talk to all of the agents at Momentum who are eligible to be mentors, and I find out what they're looking for, what's their personality style, what personality style do they work best with, and then I pair those people up from there. I take on some myself.
That's that psychology desire that you had at one time.
I definitely put it to use.
So you're in that initial, meeting with this possible agent coming on. What are some of the things that you ask or are you listening for that tells you they're a goal setting person?
Yeah, I mean, I generally ask, first of all, like, how do they find Momentum and what stood out about us? Because there's so many brokerages and there's so many amazing brokerages in Jacksonville. One of the cool things about real estate is we get to place our business, with a company that's in alignment to us. So I want to know why they found us, like what drew them to us. If it's specifically about the splits, I'm going to want to dig a little bit deeper on that because that's really not the way that we're, recruiting. Obviously, the financial aspect of it is very important because we want our agents to be able to build big lives, and they can do that through competitive
And there's
splits.
There's many other brokers that probably even have a greater split in the agent's behalf. What is it they want out of Momentum?
So just really kind of listening. I don't know that there's any one specific thing, but I really ask them, what are their goals and what can I give them from this conversation that'll make them walk away from it and feel like it was worthwhile, whether they join Momentum or not. And that just leads us to an open-ended conversation. It's so important to me that every interaction I go into, I'm bringing value and I'm bringing a perspective where someone can feel heard and they can leave with some good ideas that they can put into action tomorrow.
All right. Have you listened to all my 50 episodes?
I have not.
Because the common themes. I mean, Daniel, are we not hearing them over and over again? Value. Yeah. Using that word. Consistency is another one. We talked about education already. These are common themes that I've heard constantly all along. I think probably by episode 100, definitely by 200, I probably can write a book on all the interviews and talking to the successful. So we talked a little bit about what you're doing and you're doing there, but let's go back a little bit to your beginning. What led you to Momentum?
Oh, okay. So when I was leaving title, the title company I was working for got sold, and they were taking all of the Clearwater, Tampa offices under their new umbrella and didn't really want Jacksonville. So I had the option, stay in title, kind of take this thing off on my own, go find a job with another title company. They didn't even have to finish the sentence. And I was like, I'm getting my real estate license. You can stop pitching whatever other options are out there. I know what I'm doing. Right. And it's really funny because Carly Lozo, when she was doing Real Producers, we had met just through me being in title. And as we were talking, she had just so briefly mentioned you and John Brooks would get along really well. I'm like, okay. I'm like, that's really weird. He randomly friend requested me, and I'm not huge on social media. I'm like, I don't think we even have mutual friends. I don't know why he friend requested me. So, but that had him on my radar. Right. And that was at the time that him and Brittany, Brittany was joining the business and they were building their team. Well, when I decided I was going into real estate, again, coming from a salaried position, I now have my first daughter. She's in daycare full time. And I knew if I was going to make real estate work, she had to stay in daycare, and this had to be a full-time job for me, not a hobby. And so I knew I likely was going to want to join a team or somewhere with some level of some support. Well, the day that I registered for my class, John made a post on Facebook saying, hey, we're hiring for a buyer's agent, because Brittany had just had their first daughter. And I'm like, okay, this is a sign. I've been watching this guy. They seem to be doing things a little bit differently. And so I reached out, and while I'm in the course, sat down and talked to him and went through like an insane interview process. So like I held some pretty high up corporate positions with Victoria's Secret, and my interview process with John was more intense than that. To have a position on his team where, like, mind you, he was not paying me a salary. I was still only going to be commissioned, but he put me through the ringer for like a couple of months. Right. And
he wasn't just going to put a hot body in there.
He was definitely not going to do that. And it was impressive, and it made me want it more. Like I went into the conversation not knowing what to expect, but I'm like, oh, whoa, you're not sure if you want me? Like, okay. So that's how it started. So I joined the Brooks group.
That's why you're always trying to continue to show yourself that you're worthy.
Yeah. So I joined the Brooks group, and it was an amazing experience. And as the conversation, one of the first pieces of the conversation was starting Momentum was some of the things that I had brought up that I saw as obstacles as being a top producing agent in our office, but being on a team and not feeling like it financially made sense. And so it was kind of how we spurred the conversation for Momentum. And then when they said, hey, if we open a brokerage, what do you think? I'm like, I'm down, sign me up. Like, whatever, you have not led me wrong thus far. Like, what do you need to do? And when I got into real estate, one of the questions John asked me was like, what do you think is going to be most challenging for you with this? And my answer then, and it still is the same, was that I'm used to leading people. Like I'm used to being in a management role where I'm educating people, and other people's goals are more important to me than my own, as far as being able to celebrate when they reach a certain level of success. Yes. And so, starting Momentum, completed that puzzle for me of I still got to do real estate that I love while being back into a leadership position.
I'm the same way. I really, from that standpoint, you want to see others be successful. I was having a conversation. Part of it was on text, and then finally we get on the phone. And luckily, this person's a new loan officer with us, but I've known her for a while. She's actually the one who referred me here to come here. And I said, you need to get in the office. You need to hear the conversations. You need to hear the situations. I spent first 12 years of my career in the call center, Quicken Loans, and then Loan Depot. Now, granted, of 8.5, roughly 9 years of that, I was working from home.
Okay.
But going from Quicken to Loan Depot in that time period was because I was getting burnt out. Yeah. I would venture back to Detroit for a week or whatever, but come back. But I'm not there on a daily. Of course, it's a grind, and I'm glad I got out of that world, but I'm benefit from that world because of the volume and everything that I learned. Yeah. Because they are constantly training and listening to your calls. How did you say this? You're constantly from that standpoint. However, there was a tremendous amount learned, kind of like standing on the retail store floor. You put your dues in. Yeah. You put your time in there. But the things that you can learn from being around the others. And me being now, I think I was yesterday. I am the oldest guy in the office. I think there might be one other person that has as many years in as I do, but yeah, I want to give. Yeah. The podcast has turned out to be just that. I'm hoping, the people that you're mentoring now, they're listening to this, and whether they listen to it today in March of 2022 or 2025, things are not going to change that much in the core values that what we're talking about: education, consistency, those things that we're just talked about. So yeah, I think we both get a high off of that, and to share what we've learned and improve others. Yeah.
Winning alone's just really not that fun. You got to have the people around you that want to celebrate with you, and just being able to see that like there's success there and you can replicate it. And so, and it's a win not only for the agents that I'm working with, but it's a win for their customers also. And so that's something that I take very seriously.
Tell us about your initial start. You jump in, how long did it go before you got your first home? What are some of the struggles that you had? Yeah.
So listen, I was really fortunate. I chose wisely in choosing a team that was really like at peak production level. So there were leads there for me. I had my first house under contract 30 days to the like exact date from passing my real estate exam. And then that first month I had 4 houses under contract. So okay. I can't, there wasn't, I was strategic in choosing a team because I couldn't have that 4 to 6 month startup period. I wasn't in that position. And that mindset is what had held me back from starting real estate sooner. And so I just knew like, this is how it has to be. I am good on the phones. I'm great with online leads, although I knew quickly, like, this is not how I'm going to build like my long-term business. Yeah.
You don't want to be doing this 3 and 4 years from now.
I know. Like I do not want
let alone 3 or 4 months from then, but yeah.
Yeah. So I had been doing a lot of network marketing through being in the title world, and I was very active in a local BNI. Mm-hmm. I was fortunate enough to, just a couple of months into my real estate career, get a BNI seat as the realtor. So I am holding one as the title agent. Yeah, the stars kind of aligned.
Do you recommend that for everybody?
Not for everyone.
What is your BNI? Yeah. Some people have said is a lot more work than they're getting in, and then obviously what return they're getting out for the work they're putting in. Since you brought that up, what's your overall opinion, or who is the right person for a BNI, I guess?
So somebody who has the giver's gain mentality, that is like the motto of BNI. So you really have to go into it with, you're going to give more than you're going to get. And if you show up that way every single day, and you're in a group with people that you genuinely want to see succeed, and you want to go out there and promote and fight for their businesses, then it's right for you. You also have to like in-person networking. Yes, now with COVID, it's, some chapters are in Zoom. Mine is back in person. That's not for everyone. That face-to-face interaction is not the way that everyone wants to run their business. I think for real estate agents getting into BNI, the struggle is it's usually realtors who start the chapters. And where the complaint of it's more work than what you get out is if you're starting a chapter, that is a ton of work. And I actually talked to quite a few agents who are considering it, and they want to hear the pros and cons of it. And so I'm always happy to have that conversation and, come visit my chapter and, see what it's about. I'm more than happy to introduce you to it, because when it's successful, it's hugely successful.
Because everyone is bought into the similar ideology, culture, the giver of that. And that's why it's, I guess, important. So much like you got lucky and just kind of your path led you to Momentum, meeting certain people led you here and led you there. And you've got lucky, or at least realized that you were in the right spot and didn't go to try to find greener grass.
Oh, yeah.
Type thing. So from that standpoint, but for a new agent out there who is either just getting into their course, maybe just got out, what advice would you give that person? Maybe they're in another state.
Yeah.
So not related to here, to where you like, well, come with me. I know you're going to be successful because I am, and I'm going to show you. But they're in another state, so you don't have that kind of control over. Sure. What should they be doing to find that right brokerage based on their?
Yeah, find people that you can be proud to be in business in. So let's say all of a sudden for one reason or another, you've got the most important meeting of your life tomorrow, but there is, something out of your control happens and you can't go and you have to send that person that you just signed up with. Would you be proud having them walk in the room and feel
or trust them?
So just find people that are aligned with you culturally and your values. And John and Brittany have become two of my closest friends. I mean, they're basically family at this point. Our kids are best friends. So, we do a lot of things in life together outside of just business. And I'm fortunate to be in that position where, I'm with the right people.
Well, I mean, again, another common theme that I'm hearing from you is people that want to be around each other because your business especially gives you the ability to get up and kind of choose where your path may go each day. Yeah. But if you're joining a group that may be holding you accountable subliminally, they may not actually.
I knew they were holding me accountable.
Yeah. Some people need more accountability than others to succeed, or at least get jump started in the career. But one of the other common themes that I'm also hearing from a lot of top agents, and I kind of got it from you, is you don't see other agents as competition.
No.
You see it as the synergy of a driving force, and that you want all these real estate stallions want to get together in the same office because exchanging ideas, hearing another person close it, pushing you to say, hey, I need to make a couple more phone calls because we know internally we like to be on the top of the list.
Yeah, of course. There's competition, but they're not your competition.
Right.
There's an internal competition with setting and exceeding your goals. It doesn't do my buyers and sellers any it's no service to them if I'm in direct competition mentally with the agents I'm working with. We need to be able to work together and collaborate. And I want to leave every closing with that agent as someone who's in my corner that I know I can count on and I want to see again.
Collaborate's a huge word. Another word I'm hearing all over the place because that's what you're doing. Someone has a buyer, someone has a seller. You're not in the same circle that so it's not likely they're going to know you unless you're the only agent in the universe that they can call on. But when you get together, you have to collaborate and bring that, and hopefully have a positive, because it's best for both of you that everything goes smoothly for both. That hopefully you get a referral or whatever and just works for. But collaboration, not competition. So this leads into the next thing. You're staying on top of your game. You're educating yourself of the business. You started Untitled. Yeah, you got that down. The different things that you're learning. What are you doing, though, to keep yourself mentally sharp? Because you're training people.
Yeah.
So you want to, actually, the question I had when you were making that statement earlier was, would you agree our greatest competition is really ourselves?
Absolutely. Yeah. It should be your only competition, right? I may see someone doing something and strive to do something similar, but I'm me and they are them, and I'm never going to do it exactly the same as them. And so, that internal competition is everything.
A friend of mine told me years ago, and I put this in a presentation a couple weeks ago, I was telling you I was doing, you are compensated by the value you bring to the table.
Yep.
And if you are not working on yourself, some of us need more than others. I'm in that category. You need to be picking up the books, listening to the podcast, going to the trainings. How important, do you feel is like, maybe you aren't a book reader, maybe you aren't a podcast listener. I totally understand. Disagree with you, but I totally understand. There are people like that. Not everyone's going to jump on board, and that's why certain people make a lot more than others.
Yeah.
But how important it is to have a good office like Momentum and make sure you're going to the trainings they're providing.
Yeah. I mean, if you're at Momentum specifically and not going to the trainings, you're absolutely crazy because there's so much value. We have conversations all the time. Like, what are the reoccurring obstacles that we're hearing our agents talk about? And then we're creating trainings from people who are experts today on that topic and getting them in there. And I'm not just talking about other people in the real estate industry. We're bringing in top speakers. We had Eric Maddox in, we've had Anil Gupta. Like, we're getting TEDx speakers that come and do exclusive events for our Momentum agents.
Sweet.
So there are some that are paid events, but you're getting like steeply discounted. Others are, we had the agent on yesterday who's top producer in San Francisco since 2016. So that's huge. And he just came on and he was completely transparent on how he's seen success. That's a recorded training. So if you couldn't be on it live, please, if you're at Momentum, I hope you're watching this back.
And then you're not charging the agent. Technically they're, whatever their split is or whatever, you must invest in yourself.
Yeah.
And the story I was reading about the guy who wrote all the thank you cards, sold all the cars, 13,000 cars in 15-year career selling. The one thing he said is when his tax guy told him, it says, oh, yeah, if you go, do that, that's a tax deduction. If you're going to an event, a training, it's a tax deduction. You're 1099. Leverage it.
Yeah.
Either give it to Uncle Sam or spend it on yourself. What would you rather do?
Yeah.
I think people miss out on the personal. So you personally, what do you like to do? Are you a book reader? Do you listen to a podcast? What is it that you do to keep your
I'm a little bit of everything. Like this week alone, we had, 2 trainings through Momentum. So I'm always trying to stay really on top of what we're putting out there for our agents.
I'm sure the TEDx speakers are really good.
Oh, they're amazing. Yeah, some really cool experiences there. And so I'm always trying to stay on top of what we're doing at Momentum. I do read quite a few books. I can also be that person who's like, oh, this book is good. Let me get like the Cliff Notes version of it. My attention span. Sometimes I just need to like get in and grab it and then take it from there. Yeah.
But you're advancing. You're moving forward. You're working on yourself.
Yeah. Oh, always. Most recently, the podcasts that I've been listening to are actually parenting advice because my oldest is about to turn 4 and she's like really giving me a run for my money personality wise. And it's really funny though, because I'm listening to those and I'm taking notes and I'm like, oh my gosh, this like applies to real estate too. So it's not just, anywhere in your life that you can see growth, it kind of transcends just that one piece of your life and it applies in all other areas.
Yeah. So, all right, Ella Woods came in. She spoke very highly of you. Sold her first home, she said, in March, had $9.5 million by the end of the year. She credited a lot to you.
That's nice of her.
Yes. So it was quite an endorsement. And so I put in here, what is the secret sauce? What was it about what you were providing that she was drinking?
Well, first of all, in that circumstance, the secret sauce is Ella herself. She has to take so much credit for that because I gave her the exact same training and tools that I've given to like many, many other agents, and she saw one production level. So, I cannot take all the credit or even half the credit there. She's such a hard worker. She knows what she's about, and she was here to learn, and she was like, you tell me to do it and I'm going to do it. And she jumped in, she got uncomfortable, and she kind of found her place. But pretty much like I start with the basics and I start by having conversations and teaching them how to have conversations with buyers and sellers. We start with the buyers and what's most important. I'm not huge on like memorizing a million scripts, but there are 1 or 2 that, you need to know them because again, to come off as sounding confident, you kind of have to know those most important questions, especially when you're brand new, to keep the conversation going. And so we role played a lot. We practiced those things. We talked about different objections. When she was ready to write an offer, I didn't write it for her. I made her watch the video on how to write an offer. She wrote it, she sent it to me, and then we reviewed it and we went over the whys behind everything, right? So I made her jump in.
Yes.
And she jumped in and she did it.
All right, honestly, okay, we are being recorded. She's probably watching right now.
She's probably going to be watching, yeah.
When you first met her,
Oh, I knew.
What was your impression?
Yeah, I mean, she is so likable from the very first interaction. So she was still up in Virginia. We got on a Zoom call, and it was really funny because like at first I was like, I didn't realize, and I don't know why I didn't put it together, but I didn't realize like she was literally like still finishing college, right? And so first of all, I was impressed by that because she took action. And I can tell a lot through the interview process on how quickly people respond to me and get me things back. Like, okay, you're going to take action. You're going to treat this the way you're going to treat your customers. And we got on the Zoom call and we just connected right away. She was so likable. The fact that she was a Division I athlete says a lot as far as her work ethic was concerned. Definitely. And the fact that she was going to train, she was going to practice, she was going to put in the reps.
She had to swing that club 10,000 times.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that was one of my easiest hires. That was a no-brainer.
All right. So recently, I was scrolling through your social media, getting prepared for the show. Tell us about being a Momentum champion.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge honor, first of all. You know, I'm so proud to stand among all the other Momentum agents. And so just being able to hit those goals. And, you know, for me, transactions and volume and dollars, like obviously they're important, right? I have to have financial
It's a measure
goals.
of what you're doing.
It's a measure of it. But for me, when I look back on that, it then makes me think of all of the families that means that I got to help throughout the year and all the people that I, you know, have helped get into their home. And so it just really makes you kind of reflect on that. And this was a big year for me. I had my second child. I was running a team. You know, we were growing so much as Momentum. And so just kind of makes you step back and think of like all the things you're able to accomplish, which is awesome.
Well, in the last minute or two, you said a couple things. She took action. You're talking about Ella.
Yeah.
And that, I think right there, so many people miss it. They have great ideas, great visions and their dreams, yet they tell people about the dream that they have. And those people they don't have the same dream.
Yeah.
And then they want to squash your dream because their dream is different.
Get rid of them.
Yeah. Taking action, taking massive action. I've talked to one of the greatest loan officers in the country as far as retail, residential, real estate. And the one thing is you got to take action, but then you're going to follow up with that consistency and whatever you're doing. I always say 10x. If there's anything, whatever you're doing, 10x it.
Yeah.
So if training is giving you energy or whatever, 10x it, because that energy is going to spill over to your buyers and sellers. Your confidence, you're on top of the game. I could sense, you have a lot of energy and just, our conversation right here, and that's positive. Juices just flow and they flow into other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
3 years in the career, in almost 3 years, May, I think this year. You put May on your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
What would you have done differently?
So it's an interesting question. The gut instinct is to say I would have gotten into real estate sooner, but as soon as those words come out of my mouth, I have to take it back because if I didn't have the retail experience and I didn't have the title experience, I wouldn't have gotten here so quickly. I think that the real answer to that would be I would have started setting personal goals sooner. And, because I was working for big corporations, you get so set on other people telling you this is what you have to hit.
Yeah.
And I wasn't thinking about myself in those things at all. And then coming into real estate and being a business owner now and having so much more control over an outcome, I would have started setting those. I set goals, but when I look back on them, they weren't personal goals. Right. They weren't helping my final outcome. It was helping somebody else.
Right. I'm on the same levels at helping someone. To me, it's a lot easier to do that than sometimes. And actually, over the last, I've had spurts through the years, and different times I've purged into personal development. And John Maxwell a few years ago, and now obviously when I wanted to start the podcast, listening to the podcast. But you've got to work on yourself. Yeah. You can't. You can help others, but until you really work on yourself and reach a level, then their ears and eyes are bigger to you than they are when you're not working on yourself. Yeah. They see you a little differently. What would you say your biggest area of needing improvement is?
Oh, wow. Such a hard one. We like to focus on our strengths, right? That's a good one. No, I think it's really just about constantly being in that growth mindset and always wanting to learn and just being able to always take something from the people around you.
That's what you're best at.
Yeah. One of the areas that I struggle in that kind of ties into it is that once I've committed to somebody, I'm committed to a fault, even when I recognize like this may not be the best situation for all parties involved.
I think we all deal with that.
And so being able to, so being able to kind of pivot and just say, hey, you know what, like, I don't think I'm best for you, and vice versa. Like getting rid of those energy sucks. Those things that drain you. So,
you know, I mean, how many times you've had a deal and it's like, oh my God, this. Unfortunately, you know, we deal like some of the buyers or sellers or whatever, are draining you, and you're like, God, I just can't wait to get this closed, and then I'm done. It happens. It happens to the best of us in all aspects. I got a couple of questions here. On one, so which one I'm gonna? Well, we already asked what led you to Momentum. We already talked about that. Michele's 3 keys to success. So again, I guarantee you're talking. What are you telling these agents? And it's probably changed.
Yeah.
Ella's 3 keys to success when you started with her a year ago are probably different than what you're telling agents today.
Yeah.
What are your 3 keys to success now? They're must-dos as a real estate agent, in your opinion.
Always be willing to learn. Learn how to listen, like really listen, because you're going to pick up on things and be able to get places faster when you can hear what's behind the noise. And then just surround yourself with the right people. If your goals are outgrowing your inner circle, those 5 people that you have around you, they're going to be the most impactful people in your life. And so I'm not saying, you know, cut friends and family out of your life, but you may need to redelegate how you spend your time and who you spend it with.
All right. So, golly. So, surrounding yourself by the right people. The first one was education, constantly learning. The second one again?
Learn how to listen.
Learn how to listen. That is so crucial. And that's why I put notepads here in front of everybody, because the exact thing is I want to focus on you and listening to what you're saying and how powerful, so we can have a great conversation. And too many of us, whether it's a loan officer or a new real estate agent, you learn all these things and you just want to tell everybody about it. And the thing is, sometimes you just need to just listen. Bite your tongue and just listen. Your time will come. And because you did that, you'll go much further versus jumping in and interrupting someone in mid-thought because now you had a thought. Trust me, there was thoughts went through. That's why I missed number 2 is because I was focused on and my thoughts are going ahead, but I have to control that to listen, look them in the eyes and make that relationship. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you say, but the fact that you listened impressed them and that they want to, they build that trust in you.
Absolutely.
What is it you love about the business so much?
I get to help people. You know, I'm involved in something that is life-changing. I have buyers who walk into a house that they know is the one and they start tearing up, and I right then and there know, like, I've got to do everything in my power to make sure that they get this house. When I'm working with sellers, sometimes it's a huge celebration and other times it's a bittersweet moment. And so just knowing that I kind of get to be there and be their support during that huge transition in life, like that's everything for me. And I know that's where I'll be able to continue in it without burning out, because that feeling will never go away.
All right, we're going to go back to, no, it was a good answer. I was listening. Let's go back. It was May of 2019 is when you started. Okay, so we're going to go back to April 2019.
Okay.
All right. And just think about, I don't know, think of your zip code, where you lived. Maybe that hasn't changed. I don't know. What you were driving, what your goals were, what got you excited about the day. So then you start real estate the next month. So what has changed from April 2019 to today, as far as you you and your family, really you and your husband? Now you've had obviously two. Well, you had the 4-year-old. 4-year-old was before, and you had another child during this time period as well. How has the business changed you? What has it done for you?
Yeah. So I'm so much more fulfilled as a person. And so if I'm fulfilled individually, I can bring more to my family, right? And so I have more time for my family. Although sometimes I'm working more hours, the time that I have with them is more impactful. And I know I control my schedule. So if there's something important, I'm never going to miss it, right? Like I know that I can make that happen. I have the support system in my business in order to be able to control that. It's funny because you bring up like where you live and the thing, the material things. I actually went into real estate knowing, like, hey, we have a house we can grow into. I've got the car that I can grow into. And so none of that's actually changed. Although this year the focus is going to be on, obtaining some investment properties and potentially buying another residence for us to live in. But, so yeah,
good luck with that.
Yeah, right. Well, exactly. The perfect thing would have to come along. We love our house. So no, it's just the fulfillment that I have in myself. And then also I've got 2 little girls that get to look at me and see me run a business. I mean, my 4-year-old talks about it. We get in the car and she's like, are we going to see one of your customers? Are you showing a house? I haven't come on a showing with you in a long time. And knowing that I'm showing them that and that work ethic, like, it makes me so proud that they're getting to see that.
Well, it's interesting you say, because so when you filled out our little bio questionnaire online, you had agent mom or mom agent in one order or another. But that is a common theme that I see with the high number of female agents that there are success is the kind of internal importance. I mean, you may not put that out there. Oh, it's important that but when you turn around and actually see your kids, or I've had some say, their kids are graduating from high school or college saying, hey, when I graduate, I want to go get my license and I want to go work with you and that sort of thing. I mean, I think one of the greatest parts of my life I always put forth is there was so much time when I was growing up. My parents were self-employed. My dad was for a good period of time. And that I actually worked side by side with them for so many years. Now, obviously, that seems so long ago now when I look at it. But at the time, I was like, this is such valuable time because they're going to grow up and go other places. Yeah. But the fact they want to hang with you and you're successful is their inspiration.
It's amazing.
And then, I mean, isn't it great? I mean, you're successful. I would imagine the money's a little different than it was in the retail world from that standpoint. You want to go to Disney World? Oh, let's go. You don't even think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's funny because the money held me back. And like hindsight's 2020, right? And like, again, I needed all of those things to happen to get me where I am, but the money held me back and the fear of that. And yet my family's in a much better position than we ever could have been on a set salary that I had no control over. Right. My daughter pretends to be on the phone talking to customers and I hear the things she's saying. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like the way she negotiates with me, I'm like,
hello, this is Michele with Momentum Realty.
It's rubbing off. So, she will tell everyone what I do for work.
Your career hasn't been long, but it sounds like you mentioned this person possibly to answer this question. Is my last formal question.
Yeah.
Who is well, actually, let's actually look at all of your career, post-college, really. Who has been the most influence on your career, professional career, even in the retail? Maybe there was someone there, but who do you think you look back at? I look back at a coach that I had in high school was one of the greatest influences in my life. But as far as your career, is there some person that's been the greatest influence?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious answer is, of course, John and Brittany. But really before that, to lead me to that point, the owner of the title company that I worked for, Abe, we had an amazing relationship. And he believed in me in a level to where if I ever doubted I was going to be able to do real estate, he was like, oh, no, he saw something in me that it was like every time that I was a little nervous, I just knew between him and Angie, like really my partners in the title company, it set me up to be able to take that leap of faith and even be able to find John and know who the right person was to start this business.
Isn't it interesting? I mean, because you mentor people now and you probably see things. You see how they carry themselves, how they speak, what, their goals and so forth. And you're like, man, this person is going to be successful. And you want to pour into them. Yeah. Sometimes they don't always see it right away.
Yeah, not themselves. Always. Yeah.
Yeah. These is what I call my 2-minute warning questions. Okay. We're going to round up here. If you've listened to at least one podcast. I
have listened. Yeah.
Okay. Is it more important who you know or what you know?
Oh, I mean, it's got to be who you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So really that well, in this case, Facebook introduced you to John.
Yeah.
Yeah. Through Brittany's recommendation or something there that got you and thing. And I agree as well. What is on your travel bucket list?
So this would have been a very different answer pre-COVID. I have like much less desire to leave the country just in case I get stuck somewhere. Right. It would have been Ireland, Scotland, Italy, but
still there. Hopefully soon. Maybe we'll get back.
It's a possibility, but really, the like burning desire is getting in an RV and being able to pick up with my kids when they're like elementary school age and just spend a year traveling.
All right, I'm putting this out here. I'm putting this out here now. Yeah. You are right on with me, sister. I've mentioned it to one, maybe two other people. I've mentioned this to two other people. I've not mentioned this to my wife.
Yeah.
If she's listening, here it is. I would like to get with one or two other families and actually buy a nice RV. Mm-hmm. Each of us use it because we want to do just that.
Yep.
Travel across the country. And I really believe one of the markets that is huge, just like Airbnb, is the RV rent.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
We got a whole plan around it. My husband and I talk about it almost every day. My siblings are out in Colorado, so that kind of spurred it. I'm like, we can visit them longer and then really explore the West Coast.
Well, there's so many nooks and crannies in every little town. You missed that museum. What's that show called? Mystery in the Museum. Mm-hmm. And they go to these little towns, and the museum in a little town has this little nugget that has a story behind it, and you never know until you drive through because you're going to fly over it every time.
Yep.
All right, I'm a loan officer.
Yes.
You've been an agent for a few years now. There's hopefully loan officers listening to this. This is a new question I had in here in the last couple shows. What is it most when you're with your lending partner? I'm sure you have someone that you like to go to because you like and trust them, and they've been successful. What is, if you were to say there was one important thing about that, is why that that you count on that person? It's what is the number one thing in that loan officer relationship as a real estate agent?
It's the pre-qualification process. I want to know. I take a lot of pride in the fact that when I get a buyer under contract, they close. Mm-hmm. And that starts with the lender that I'm working with. So I want to know that they're collecting documentation. We're having like really open and honest conversations with the borrowers of, are there any things that are going to be tricky about this? And if there are, let's make sure
Is it marginal? Does it look a little shaky? Don't breathe on it, because trust me, we have loans like that.
We've closed some tricky stuff.
Yeah.
But it's because we know about it, and we're really, I'm big on being proactive. So yeah, it is hands down the pre-qualification process.
Awesome. Michele, if someone's listening to the show, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
You can send me a message on Facebook or send me a text, and I will respond really quickly to those text messages. And
your social media links that you've already given me, they will be in the show notes of the show. If you're listening to it, please, if you're on Facebook, like and share, love that. When you listen to the audio, when it comes out on Apple and Spotify and so forth, please make comments. 5-star preferred. But really just having your content is, the more you do that, just like Facebook, the more people liking your stuff, it moves to the top. Same thing with the podcast. And I think more and more agents are finding it valuable. I listen to my own podcast, obviously, to see listen to how I sound, but listening to someone's story. Now, I heard it once from you. When you actually listen to it again, and I'm hearing you again, and I can actually, I'm focusing on that versus, trying to gear up another question or something, and hearing someone say something a second time, it just gives me a lot of energy, because it's positive momentum, and this is all good stuff, and so many common themes of the best real estate agents that I'm hearing week in and week out. It's not a coincidence. It's really inspiring stuff. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.